Oh, thank you. I'll take... Don't worry, I'm not going to leave this down. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Ann Pearl, and I'm going to be your worship associate today. Please rise in body or spirit and join us in our first hymn, our Song of Gathering, Where is Our Holy Church, number 113 in your gray hymnal.
Praise and bless you, Lord. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Linda Kara-Nicholas, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley. Whether you have been with this congregation a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Whatever your heritage, we welcome you. We respectfully acknowledge the territory on which our church building sits as the ancestral home of the Munsee, Lenape, and Wappinger people. A couple of announcements. There will be a UU 101 class after worship on June 5th in the Fellowship Hall. This is a class for anyone interested in membership at the UUCHV. If interested, simply fill out a yellow card or contact Reverend Josh. The town hall will be held on June 5th at noon to discuss the budget for 2022 and 23. The annual meeting will be the following Sunday, June 12th. That's where we vote on the budget, vote on the Board of Trustees seats. For the most up-to-date information, please refer to our weekly e-newsletter and check our website frequently. The website is also the place where you can find contact information for our staff, our board of directors, and other congregational leaders. And please join us for conversation after the service. If you are present in the sanctuary, feel free to stay afterwards right here. Coffee and free tapa. And for coffee and what? Free tapa. Oh, the tent's still up, so we'll have coffee out there. That'll be very nice. I like that. Good idea.
Who's giving announcements to whom?
If you're watching on live stream, the link for a Zoom coffee hour can be found in the Saturday reminder of your email and on our website. If you're just recently joining us and would like to receive our weekly e-news, please email us with your name and we will make sure you're added to our e-news list. We can also answer any questions you might have, probably. Email us at uucroton@gmail.com or fill out one of the yellow cards in the back of the pews and drop it in the collection plate. Silent your cell phones at this time. And once again, we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley.
We affirm the beauty of nature and all the universe. We affirm the closeness and love of the human family. We affirm the joy of work and play and of living. Even amidst what chaos and evil we find, we choose life.
Today's chalice lighting words are by Leslie Pole Kosbow. Flame of fire, spark of the universe that warmed our ancestral hearth, agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom, we strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. Now please join me in saying the Unison Affirmation. The words are in your order of service. Inspired by love, Our mission is to seek our true nature, connect deeply and openly, and act for justice. Let us now bear witness to the joys and sorrows experienced in our community. If you have a brief, yet personally significant joy or sorrow that you are willing to share, please come up to this microphone. Please speak directly into the mic so that everyone, including the people watching at home, can hear you. If you would prefer to have only a candle lit without speaking, please just stand and I will light a candle for you. Sorry.
This is a sorrow from Karen Sue. My sorrows are that my mom died this past Monday. She was 96 and in poor health for quite a long time, so her passing is also a feeling of relief. When people ask me how I am, I've been saying I'm filled with sadness, relief, and gratitude. I knew how much she and my dad loved me, and I'm carrying their love with me in life and now through their death until my death. I know how fortunate I am. My other sorrow is that my husband tested positive for COVID on Monday, and I also tested positive yesterday, which was a few days ago, and we're both managing okay. And she also says, please let the congregation know how grateful I am to be a part of this loving and caring community.
I want to thank everybody who is here physically outside in the heat and participating remotely in our auction last night. We haven't done all the math yet, but we raised at least $7,000 for the congregation. So thank you all so much.
We also acknowledge all the unspoken joys and sorrows held within the sanctuary of our hearts and all those people who have yet to find a spiritual home where they too can share their joys and sorrows.
At this time, I invite you to join in the spirit of meditation. You may wish to do so by sitting up straight wherever you are, putting your feet flat on the floor to ground you to the earth. Close your eyes if you wish, or leave them just slightly open. And slowly take in a nice deep breath and gently release it, releasing all of the stress of the week. Earth, teach me stillness as the grasses are stilled with light. Earth, teach me suffering as old stones suffer with memory. Earth, teach me humility as blossoms are humble with beginning. Earth, teach me caring as the mother who secures her young. Earth, teach me courage as the tree which stands alone. Earth, teach me limitation as the ant which crawls on the ground. Earth, teach me freedom as the eagle which soars in the sky. Earth, teach me resignation as the leaves which die in the fall. Earth, teach me regeneration as the seed which rises in the spring. Earth, teach me to forget myself as melted snow forgets its life. Earth, teach me to remember kindness as dry fields weep with rain. Let us be together now in a moment of silent meditation.
Today's reading is called The Land Ethic by Aldo Leopold. All ethics so far evolved rest upon a single premise, that the individual is a member of a community of interdependent parts. His instincts prompt him to compete for his place in that community, but his ethics prompt him also to cooperate. The land ethic simply enlarges the boundaries of the community to include soils, waters, plants, and animals, or collectively, the land. This sounds simple. Do we not already sing our love for and obligation to the land of the free and the home of the brave? Yes, but just what and whom do we love? Certainly not the soil, which we are sending helter-skelter downriver. Certainly not the waters, which we assume have no function except to turn turbines, float barges, and carry off sewage. Certainly not the plants, of which we exterminate whole communities without batting an eye. Certainly not the animals, of which we have already extirpated many of the largest and most beautiful species. A land ethic, of course, cannot prevent the alteration, management, and use of these resources, but it does affirm their right to continued existence. And at least in spots, their continued existence in a natural state. In short, a land ethic changes the role of Homo sapiens from conqueror of the land community to plain member and citizen of it. It implies respect for his fellow members and also respect for the community as such. An ethic to supplement and guide the economic relation to land resupposes the existence of some mental image of land as a biotic mechanism. We can be ethical only in relation to something we can see, feel, understand, love, or otherwise have faith in. The case for a land ethic would appear hopeless, but for the minority which is in obvious revolt against these modern trends. The key log which must be moved to release the evolutionary process for an ethic is simply this: quit thinking about decent land use as solely an economic problem. A thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise. Now please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life.
Well, last month, when one would normally celebrate Earth Day, I got called away to Ohio, and the worship committee wonderfully filled in. And so today I thought, since it is exactly 1 month later, that we would try it again. So this is Earth Day Revisited. After all, isn't every day Earth Day? I think what drew me to Unitarian Universalism way back when was the perspective it has on the world. Most folks look at our world and see kind of a collection of individual people, nations, things, ideas, all kind of running around and bumping into each other. But Unitarian Universalism is different. Rather than seeing the world in its individual parts, we look for the whole, the process, the flow of life. One of the first things that drew me to this faith, what kept me coming back, was the sense that we're not isolated beings thrown together like ping pong balls. We are interconnected. What happens to you is deeply concerning to me. What happens to me affects you at some level. That's why even when I am far away from my physical home, I feel at home with fellow Unitarian Universalists. I'm referring, of course, to our seventh principle, recognizing the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. How did we arrive at that point? How did Unitarian Universalists get from the Humanist Manifesto in 1933 to the seventh principle in 1986? Well, it just so happens that I have the General Assembly minutes from every meeting ever since, which I will now read to you. No, I'm kidding. I won't do that. Too many people running for the door, I'm sure. Instead, I thought, to illustrate the seventh principle, I would talk about a man who both lived and wrote extensively about that interdependent web. He was not a Unitarian Universalist himself, but he inspired many of us. His name is Aldo Leopold. Now, Leopold was really the first person to apply the philosophy of ethics to the environmental world. Ethics up until that point had been focused on how humans treat other humans. But Leopold used some of what the philosophers of ethics were talking about and applied it to the earth, to animals, to land, to water, and nature. You see, Aldo Leopold was a hunter and a naturalist. He understood that we human beings are a part and parcel of the world, not separate from it in some specialized category of hierarchy of beings. One of the ways we are intimately connected is through food. What we eat comes from the earth, or at least it has for most of human history until recently. When we eat things that are natural, this tends to be healthy for us. When we eat overly processed foods, it tends to be less healthy. Now, I'm speaking in general terms here because nowadays the line between food that comes from the earth and food that is processed is a pretty fuzzy one, but generally speaking, you've experienced this. Twinkies don't grow on trees, apples do. What we put in our bodies literally affects us at the molecular level. Our food becomes who we are, what we do. When we eat that apple, we give it new life. It is transformed into our bodies, our skin, our muscles that help us to move and act and love. The apple is transformed into the neurological chemicals that become our thoughts and feelings. Similarly, someone pointed out to me, we're not the end of this process. We like to think that we're at the top of the food chain, the rulers of the world, according to Genesis, but we are but yet another strand in that interdependent web. There are innumerable microorganisms that live on our skin, on our eyelashes, in our digestive systems. I won't go into details since most of us expect to eat lunch after worship today, but Google it sometime. But be warned, after you read about all the little creepy crawly things that live on and make their home in our bodies and the bodies of our loved ones, you may find yourself showering for days on end. Aldo Leopold had that interdependent understanding of the world. Instead of seeing things as a collection of isolated individuals, he saw things in terms of larger systems. What happens to one species affects another. Now, as I mentioned, Leopold was a hunter, did a good deal of hunting in Wisconsin, where he spent most of his life. I, too, grew up in the upper Midwest with a strong hunting culture. Christmas and birthdays were easy for me when it comes to my extended family. A few gift cards to Bass Pro Shop and Cabela's, and they were literally happy campers. Now, this may not be a culture I'm guessing that you've encountered before, but it was common in Michigan, is common in Michigan. My brother was probably the most avid hunter in my family. This was not a trait that stuck with me. I went hunting for the first time when I was 16 years old. Now, I actually should preface this by saying that I do not tell this story too often, and almost never when I am back home in my state of Michigan. But you know, I feel home here, so I feel like I can share this with you. Obviously, at the time, I was in high school. I had taken a hunter safety course, prerequisite to getting a hunting license, and my uncle was taking me up to his family's cabin in northern Michigan. This, by the way, meant missing a full week of school, and going hunting was an acceptable excuse in my high school for missing school. Now, I'm not sure how much hunting you've done, but it is either very relaxing or very boring, depending on your point of view. You get up before dawn, sit in a blind, which is kind of like a small hideout in the woods, and you wait for a deer to come by. And you wait, and wait, and wait, and wait. And most of the time, you don't see anything. On the few occasions that you do spot an animal that is legal to shoot, and you put your gun up to your shoulder, adrenaline kicks in. Your body goes from 0 to 60 in 10 seconds. This is what's known as buck fever. And now it manifests in various ways. Some people will forget to breathe to the point where they will nearly black out. Some people can't keep a steady hand. One year, my brother came home with an impressive buck and a black eye. I teased him, finally, these deer are fighting back. A fair fight for once. Actually, it turned out to be buck fever. He pressed his eye up against the scope so hard that the recoil from the shot gave him a black eye. My experience was not quite so impressive. By the second day, I was bored to tears by sitting in this blind literally from dawn till dusk. So the next day, I did the only logical thing. I brought a book to read. Now, every once in a while, I'd look up to see if there was something to shoot. There usually wasn't. I got a lot of good reading done. And being the safe hunter that I was, I put my gun in a safe position while I was reading. Now, a few hours in, I looked up from my book and saw a deer, probably as close to me as the back pew is to this pulpit. Now, you might think, well, no big deal. All I have to do is slowly, and this is what my dad said to me, all you have to do is slowly put down the book, carefully reach for your gun, bring it up to your firing position, and you have your first deer, your very first deer on your first hunting trip. That was sort of my thinking. I was going to be Mr. Outdoorsman here. But had you thought that, you would have made the same mistake I did, not accounting for buck fever. My kidneys dumped a massive amount of adrenaline into my system the second I saw that deer. I dropped the book, snatched my gun, clicked off the safety, put it up to my shoulder, and by the time I was ready to shoot, the deer was probably half a mile away. I had scared him off. No great prize for me. That was the first mistake I made hunting. The second mistake I made hunting was telling people this story. My hunting companions found this hilarious when they heard it, and to this day, certain cousins of mine demand to hear this story so that they can have a laugh at my expense. I rarely give them the satisfaction. Now, of course, this was years before I discovered Buddhism. Buddhism takes a dim view of hunting. Killing any living thing results in bad karma, in fact, some of the worst kind of karma. And in the West, there is a similar school of thought that says that killing is wrong, painful, and cruel. What'd that deer ever do to you? Didn't you see Bambi? The hunters were the bad guys. Now, I don't know the name of this particular school of ethical thinking nor its history, but I do know that it is very vocally represented by my mother in a forlorn attempt to discourage hunting in our family. But it is worth noting that Aldo Leopold, as I mentioned, was both a naturalist and a hunter. Actually, at the time of my not-so-grand hunting expedition, deer were overpopulated in the state of Michigan. And as is often the case when animal herds are overpopulated, diseases spread. One disease that was common at the time affected the enzymes in the deer's stomach, and so that no matter how much they ate, they couldn't break down and digest their food. They were starving with full stomachs. Now, if you ask me, that is a cruel and painful way to die. In addition, locally harvested meat and produce is all the rage in the restaurant world these days. That's because locally hunted meat significantly reduces our carbon footprint on the earth. I'll never forget, there was this fish market where I used to live in Omaha, Nebraska, and they boasted to their customers about having the freshest fish and seafood flown in from both coasts and the Gulf of Mexico. Fresh food is a good thing, but that's a mighty big carbon footprint to leave just so you can have fresh fish in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, interdependence as a worldview presents us with ethical dilemmas like that. Aldo Leopold was, as I say, the first to truly understand this. In that essay that Anne read from, The Land Ethic, he shares his overriding principle for the earth. He writes, "A thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise." Prior to Leopold, the biotic community, as he puts it, was seen as only a source of profit and economic well-being. He changes that to preserving and appreciating nature for its own sake. Hunting an overpopulated deer population preserves the stability of the environment. Overhunting them down to near extinction levels does not. But those three values, integrity, stability, and beauty, lie at the core of Leopold's land ethic. Integrity, beauty, stability are what most folks focus on when they're either critiquing or evangelizing Aldo Leopold. But you know, in my most recent reading, another piece struck me. That last part of the land ethic, the biotic community. He includes the community of all living things, not just people. Now, from a philosophical point of view, the land ethic is what we would call a form of utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is a philosophy that says that something is ethical if it brings about the most amount of good for the highest number of people. The land ethic is similar in that it thinks in terms of consequences, but it has different assumptions. Rather than just looking at people, Leopold is concerned with all of life, all of nature, benefiting from a particular action. He knows that to just focus on the humans and their economic enrichment is to misunderstand our interdependent world. His is an enlightened self-interest. If we as human beings want the most amount of happiness for as many people as possible, then we need to look at the earth as a whole. Aldo Leopold is kind of the beginning of the environmental movement. His land ethic was the first assertion of something we now know all too well, that human beings are a part of nature too, and therefore our actions affect the rest of nature. Sadly, those actions have not been in keeping with integrity, stability, and beauty very well. We face an encyclopedic number of environmental problems, any one of which could prove cataclysmic. The actions of human beings on the environment have led us down this road to a large extent. But there's good news. If we can act to make things worse, then it stands to reason that we can also act to make things better. Often, when faced with the number and severity of the numerous environmental problems before us, people ask, what is the first step? I find myself asking that question more often than not. What is the first step? I think the first thing we can do to live according to that land ethic is arguably the most important step. Don't give up hope. It's easy to give up hope given the pessimistic tone of some writers and activists, but pessimism leads to despair, and despair leads to inaction. Remember, Aldo Leopold teaches us that human beings can affect their environment. Give up hope, and we guarantee that no one will do anything, and everything will get worse. So along with don't give up hope, the second step is to be inspired. A few years back, I found it very inspirational when hundreds of thousands of people flooded into New York City for the People's Climate March. True, all those people in New York didn't, in that moment, fix the hole in the ozone layer or anything quite so practical. But the real value of the march, certainly for them and even for those of us looking on, is that it buoyed hope. Through a tangible experience of being together, all those people showed that there is hope so long as we're together in our minds, bodies, and attitudes. By itself, that's not enough, of course, but it's a crucial first step, a vitally necessary first step for further action. Get a bunch of hopeful people together, inspired by each other to take action, and there is little that they can't accomplish. May we be ever in tune with not just each other, but with all living things. May we have a similar rush and excitement of buck fever as we work for a world made whole. I love you. Go in peace. Amen. We'll now have the procession of the species. Thank you, RE kids and adult volunteers. I invite you now to rise as you are willing and able and join in singing hymn number 203, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky.
Each week, we make an offering from the bounty that we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in a spirit of love and generosity, aware that we have benefited from those who have gone before, those who in their turn gave generously. Our offering goes to support the work of love and justice undertaken by this community. Today's offering will also be shared with the Poor People's Campaign. Please refer to our e-newsletter or website for more information. You can make your donation in several ways. If present in the sanctuary, you may give cash or a check in the offering plate as it comes by. You may also scan the QR code in your order of service. From your homes, you can make your donation via credit card or PayPal using the links provided in the e-newsletter. Please remember to give a little extra to compensate for the 3% surcharge. Or, if you prefer, you can always mail us a check. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. Please join me now in the dedication of the offering. The words are in your order of service. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. Please join me now in extinguishing the chalice. The words are also found in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Go in peace, speak the truth, give thanks each day. Respect the earth and her creatures, for they are alive like you. Care for your body, it is a wondrous gift. Live simply, be of service. Be guided by your faith and not your fear. Go lightly on your path. Walk in a sacred manner.
If you care to sing, it's hymn 175, We Celebrate the Web of Life.